All right, so let's move over to the mailbag. So a lot of questions, obviously. It's the busiest time of year. The inbox was absolutely flooded. So we'll get through a lot. If we may skip over some questions or just refer back to the 18 Club segment that we just did because there's a lot of repeat questions, obviously. But we'll crack straight into it. So this first question came from CP DB Light from our Richmond Crossroads video that we posted last week. So what do you think Jacob Koschitzke will cost?
It won't drive, like the Hawks won't be driving a really high price for him. Tigers last pick, I think 63, could get the deal done. Future third maybe, or future fourth. Like wasn't really in the, I think, best 22 for Hawthorn. It sounds like they did have an offer on the table for him, so they were hoping to keep him. But yeah, it could be pick 63, or it could be just a future third or fourth round pick.
Yeah, we agree. And this one comes from Josh. So thoughts on the Freo Darcy situation?
Yeah, the term Docker for life was used this week by David Walls, who's kind of their personnel manager. So they're pretty confident that could be the outcome for him. Obviously has a lot of interest, or will have a lot of interest, or has had a lot of interest from clubs from Victoria. He's, I think, a Cobden product. So the Cats will be one that are kind of quite often linked. I think North Melbourne are another one as well. Mm-hmm. But look, the club's confident. They're keeping talks up. They say everything's positive. But he's a free agent next year, and if he's not signed by the start of the season, he wants to hold off until the midway of the season. And if he's not signed by the midway of the season, then there's alarm bells. But yeah, the club's confident. Yeah.
Would that just be a move for, not just for money, but is it because that partnership between him and Jackson has
that's something else that they could kind of wait for. We kind of got a decent look at how those two work together, and they had some good performances together. But when Darcy was injured, Jackson really came to the fore and was one of probably the form players and form ruckman of the year. Darcy was really strong when the two were going together, but obviously
took a little while to gel, I think.
Yeah, of course it will when you're trying to work out those two. So that's the other thing. Maybe they wait until before the bye next year for Darcy to make a decision. If they like how things look, then he could be re-signing and on a decent deal for Fremantle to keep him. But if it's kind of not going the way they want it to, then maybe they could be open to him parting in free agency, and then they'll get a decent compensation, you think, with the offers that might come his way.
Yeah, it's just interesting because Jackson is also on a pretty good contract.
Well, that's what it sounds like.
So having two contracted ruckman is an interesting move.
Yeah, especially off what we've seen the last couple of years with those type of deals.
Yeah. All right, next one from Max Nicholas. So he thinks Clarry will leave next year.
It's interesting. Like, obviously, there's a lot being said about his standards or professionalism, it sounds like, and that's really what the Demons want to see an uptick from him in. If it similar like that Darcy stuff, if it all goes well next year, and he's but he's already a top 5 player in the competition in my eyes, so I don't really see how much better he can get. But if there is kind of that next level, then and if he reaches that, then that's he's number one in the comp by some distance, I reckon. So if he leaves next year, it's probably off the back of a down year, or the club just aren't happy with what they're seeing from him. And then, as we kind of would have seen over the last couple of days, there are going to be clubs who really want to fork up a lot for him. And now there could even be a few more clubs kind of preparing for an outcome where a trade is even more live than it was this year.
Yeah. Let's hope not. So next one comes from Cody John. Do you know if the Eagles have any players they are chasing now that Devon has re-signed?
We kind of mentioned the Eagles obviously in our preview. Like Brockman and Flynn are probably the only guys I think that are going to be coming in. They'll be going after Robinson in a 2 years' time again, you'd think. Or it could be another 12 months. Like the Lions, he might not be in their best 22, just given they'll get Ashcroft back in halfway through next year. He kind of gets pushed back out of that midfield group. They also get Levi Ashcroft in 12 months' time, who's probably, like, from what I've seen, just as good as his brother. So that's going to, probably push Devon back to the back of the queue if he doesn't have a really, really strong 2024 season. So maybe they show some more interest next year. But no real obvious options. I think one thing for West Coast is they've cleaned out their list well, and they're holding on to the players they want to hold on to. So they're not losing anyone to a rival, and they've just delisted or seen players retire. And I think it's a positive off-season for them.
Yep. Interesting. All right, so next one from Charlie P. So Cooper Sharman will have a breakout season next year.
It's another hot take. breakout, yeah, it's going to be interesting, like what we can expect from Cooper Sharman. He had a really good finals, elimination final against GWS, quite promising and good, end of the season. He really needs that opportunity, and he's only going to get it if Membry and King are absent. But if he's pressing, for selection and putting a squeeze on them, that's something that Ross Lyon can get out of these type of players really well. So a breakout season is, maybe a 40-goal year for Sharman over 20 games, 40, 50 goals would be asking a lot. And if that's the case, then who was it, Charlie? Then yeah, it sounds like he'll have some news. But I think there's certainly a chance there that he can really cement his spot in the starting 22 in 2024.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of players on that list that could have a breakout season next year. So next one comes from Blake Crawley. How well will Mabior Chol fit into Hawthorn?
Yeah, this is
good one.
This is the big list hole that they've kind of had opened up. Obviously, they just need someone to support Mitch Lewis. Jacob Koschitzke probably wasn't that guy. Mabior Chol kicked 44 goals last year, and he couldn't break into Gold Coast's forward line, but I think if he just gets a good run at it, he could certainly have a season like he did in 2022. He can also help out in the ruck. One other issue I think the Hawks have found is they haven't quite landed on who their best ruckman is, if it's Lloyd Meek or Ned Reeves. And I think Chol can be a supporting option for one of those guys, but it will just mean that there's no two ruck system for them.
Yeah.
No two full-time ruckmen in that one team for Sam Mitchell. And that'll really just heat up that selection fight between Meek and Reeves. And hopefully the best kind of comes out on top early enough in the year, and then they can kind of solve that issue. And that means that they've got a great supporting ruckman in the VFL if there's an injury or what have you. But yeah, Chol will be a nice fit. It'll be good to see him kind of performing back at his best alongside Mitch Lewis, and hopefully both of them can stay fit. Absolutely.
All right, so AJ Cole says Fullarton, Liam Ryan, Ralph Smith, and Haynes are all going to the Hawks, plus Chol and D'Ambrosio.
Chol and D'Ambrosio sounds like will kind of get their way over to Waverley.
Fullarton, we can...
Well, it sounds like he's probably going to Melbourne. Mm-hmm. It would be a nice fit. I don't think they'd need both Fullarton and Chol, though. So you'd take Chol, I think, out of those duo. Liam Ryan was, he had, I think, spoken to the Hawks, or might have even spoken to Tyler Brockman this year, and maybe it was a chance, but he'll be staying at West Coast. Ralph Smith, I think, stays at Richmond. He hasn't got a contract, to be fair, and he could be a nice little cheap option for them to pick up if he doesn't get offered a new deal by the Tigers. But I think that will be, I think he'll at least get a 1-year extension. And I'm assuming it's Nick Haynes that he's referring to. I wouldn't hate the pickup for the Hawks, just given that they probably have the money that could help get that deal done. It's just more what they have to give up. Like these kind of salary dump deals, the clubs that's getting the player, you could be able to get a nice pick from GWS, but there's a good chance that GWS are actually going to be asking for something decent in return. But I like it if you miss out on Ben McKay and you miss out on Salvatore Galea, and Nick Haynes could be a good option. Like I said, that sounds like they've got money that they can spend, and he's only contracted for 1 more year on that hefty deal, so they could thin that out over 2-3 more seasons.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, next one from Dom Vaccaro. Should Melbourne go for Ben King? Yeah,
well, they'll be one of the clubs that will be in for him next year. It won't be happening like this year, but I'd be shocked if there isn't, all 10 Victorian clubs looking at Ben King, or at least having some money aside for a bid for Ben King. He's going to cost in trade value though as well. So there's going to be clubs that are going to be, if a few clubs can pick up an extra first rounder this year through trades, which a few likely will. Then there'll be a good chance to get him, but it's also about the pool of him wanting to come back home, or if he likes what he sees under Damien Hardwick over the next 12 months. But yeah, Melbourne will be one, Collingwood will be one, St Kilda will definitely be one, and I think North Melbourne, with their war chest of picks, that could be a little bit of a smoky to get Ben King.
Yeah. All right, next one from Mason Pink. Will Essendon go after pick 4 in this year's draft? If so, how will they do it? Or how could they do it,
I guess? Yeah, so the Bombers
Everyone wants pick 4.
Yeah, well, only because it is up for grabs, and the Suns kind of just want later picks. What do the Bombers have? Pick 8, their future first. Like if the Suns kind of think, maybe the Bombers might not be as good as they were this year, and they didn't make finals, but if they can fall back into the bottom 6, then they're looking at 2 early selections for pick 4, and pick 8 can be split again by them to get more later selections. So they might have to give up something more than just pick 8 and a future first. given I think the Dogs offer might be 10, 17 in a future first. So that's maybe how they do it is 8 future first, and maybe it could be a player, but I'm not really sure who they're going to be wanting to give up.
Yeah. All right, next one from Campbell O'Brien. Is there any chance North get Clayton Oliver or Harley Reid?
We'll put a line through Clarry, I think. They could. So the funny thing with, I guess this goes back to that Ben King answer as well, is while North do have the picks to probably get anyone they want, the players, especially the ones that are contracted, have to also want to go to that club. There has to be, kind of that mutual agreement. Whereas Harley Reid's different. He's, you just have to have pick one to get him. He can't really pick where he wants to go. So I think they have the best hand in it to get pick one. Obviously they have pick 2. Likely are going to get pick 3. I think pick 14 was Port Adelaide's pick, which is now in their hands. They've got pick 19, and then they've got their own future first and 2 picks at the back end of the first round next year. So they could definitely get to the front of the queue. It'll be interesting how that plays out if they can hold on to pick 2 and do so. But I think if they're doing a deal with the Eagles, West Coast will be pressing very hard to get pick 2 from them. And look, if they get pick 3 in compensation for Ben McCabe, then they're still getting 2 of the best 3, and they're still getting the best out of this year's draft. So Clarry, no. Reid certainly could.
Yep. Next one from JMH Jedi. How will Hawthorn keep enough points to get Will McCabe and complete trades?
Yeah, okay. So, who again? Mabior Chol, I don't think is going to cost too much. He's contracted for 2 years, but maybe future selection might be how they get that one done. Then you look at Massimo D'Ambrosio, again, maybe a future third. Like, I think they'll kind of hold on to the picks they've got at the moment. So pick 3 won't kind of be in that McCabe deal. They'll get their own player from that deal, which could be, or they could move up and try and get pick 1. But yeah, McCabe likely maybe pick 15 to 20 range. So I think 30 and 49, their other 2 picks, they might have to get another late pick in, I think. I'm just trying to do the maths in my head quickly, but on the spot a little here. But no, they should be able to get in, I think, Chol and D'Ambrosio with some future selections. Maybe what they get for Koschitzke can add into that kind of package. The other one is Kelsha Deer. I don't think he's going to be a high-end draft selection, but he's another father-son pick that they want to get. Chu Giath as well is another NGA prospect for the Hawks, but he'll have to slide past pick 40 for them to match a bid. But they can always trade back in. They're a really good club at live trading. They did so last year, got Josh Weddle, parted with their future second, but certainly has paid off with the acquisition of Josh Weddle and moving back into the first round. So they're a creative club. I think they'll know exactly how to get all those ducks in line.
Yep, absolutely. All right, a couple last ones. Macklin Elliott says Nick Coffield to the Dogs. So
yeah, that sounds. I think it was Mitch Clarry might have reported that earlier this week. So good get for the Dogs. They definitely need some defensive reinforcement. Liam Jones had a great first year, but he's old and injury prone. Alex Keith, I think he's got an extension, so he'll be playing next year. But that medium-sized defender, Ballydale's a bit more attacking, so someone that can kind of lock down on those medium-sized forwards or small forwards. And Coffield's going to be a good get, who I don't think will cost them too much.
Yeah, great get. All right, so the last one from, it's just my opinion. So this was commented on our last trade table video. So he's just asking about how the Suns can get a little bit more aggressive in the trade market this trade period, given they've got all the picks and what they want to do there. So I might have to put this actual comment up for context, but you've had a little bit of a read, and what do you think?
Yeah, so I guess they trying to be a bit more aggressive. I know what you mean, because they'll a lot of their focus is on these academy picks. So they'll trade pick 4, they'll get later selections in, and they'll have more than enough points to get all 3. And if Jed Walter's bid comes in at pick 2, that'll be a lot of those picks. And then you've got Ethan Reid potentially like pick 5 or 6, so that's a lot more as well. And then Jake Rogers could fall into the top 10. So that'll blow a lot of their hand. I think they've already got, I think they're the most points or second most points behind West Coast. It's like 4,500. So
yeah,
they should have enough to get all 3. And then if those picks are late enough in the draft, as in those bids, then they could have some spare change and move back into the draft after those 3 are selected. So, if it's at pick 10 that the Rogers bid comes in, they could have enough time to play out where they can get back into the first round, which I don't think they would want to. They've just picked up 3 first-rounders, but maybe a second-round pick or a third if they've got someone that's in their sights, or there could be another academy player who they think might get picked up from someone else. So that's one way, but obviously draft night is well past trade period. So if they're wanting players and trying to get aggressive in that space, they're going to have to be pretty creative. But yeah, then they're getting picks for Chol, they're getting picks for Burgess, getting a pick for Hollands. So they could have more than enough and still have the right amount of points. And then, but they're not going to be making a big splash. I wouldn't have thought in trade period. Outside of just moving on pick 4 and kind of some of their other players. Yeah,
they're pretty locked and loaded for drafts. So that wraps it up for the mailbag. Thanks, Mitch.
Thanks, Phoenix.
So yeah, obviously trade period is going to be, arguably, is way busier than the actual home and away season for us. We're going to have a lot of content going up next week as it starts on Monday, and then 2 weeks pretty much until the next Wednesday.
Yeah, so no, what's that, 9 days?
Yeah.
Monday to Wednesday.
Yeah.
The week after, yeah.
Absolute silly season. So if you're listening to this in the podcast, this is also available on the YouTube channel. If you're on the YouTube channel, this is also available as a podcast. So lots of options there. So subscribe to the channel, listen to the podcast. And if you want to submit some questions or talking points or hot takes, you can do that through our Instagram. Follow us on the socials and catch all the latest AFL news at zerohanger.com.